Hi everyone, and welcome to the Dental BRUSHUP, the podcast where we dive deep into the tips and tricks in dental school and the dental industry. My name is Andrew Nguyen, and I'm the GUDSA president in 2025, the Griffith University Dental Students Association. And today I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Anna.
I'm Anna, and I'm the vice president of GUDSA today.
And today we have our special guest, Dr. David Houston. I'll let him introduce himself.
Well, thank you guys. Name's Dr. Dave Houston. I'm a proud Griffith Uni alumni. I finished here in 2008 and began all the way in 2004. There was no buildings, there was nothing. It was just it was just an advert in the paper that said a new dental school was opening up. I tried to get into UQ the year before, after high school in Brisbane, and very small school. There was only 50 places in all of Queensland at that point, half of which were international. So there were like 10 boys and 10 girls. This is in 2003. You know, there were really 10 boys and 10 girls from Queensland getting into dentistry. So it was really a structural sort of undersupply and very, very difficult to get in. But luckily Griffith opened up on the Gold Coast and I got to move down to Paradise, a place that I sort of soon fell in love with. So got involved with GUDSA early on when it was only one class and getting off the ground as sort of the guinea pigs, and also proudly got the Griffith Uni Rowing Club up and running. So that's been a great success for 20 years since I left. Just continued to. Then after graduating, got into business, took over my dad's clinic and grew that group to 6 practices in the Moreton Bay region and now 1 on the Sunshine Coast as well. And I've had a lot of exposure to Griffith graduates over the years, obviously myself, and then but I think I've probably engaged with over 15 years. I've engaged with maybe 30, over that time. And so I know Griffith grads really well. I know, I sort of know their strengths and their weaknesses. I've experienced it, and so it's been, that's sort of in my journey. And so it was a real pleasure to come back and see GUDSA going strong, and answer a few questions today.
Well, Dr. Dave, it's really lovely to have you here today. You've been on a crazy journey from being a student at Griffith Uni to now being the founder and leader of Australia Dental Group.
Yes.
So how has your experience in Griffith sort of shaped your journey to who you are?
Griffith's so, what I loved about my Griffith experience was the element, because it was a new school at that point and in its first year, there was a real element of choose your own adventure in a sense. So I remember the lecturers coming to us and asking, when do you think you should have exams? And we were like, not, never. But there was this sort of interaction as the school kind of, just got on its feet. We unwrapped the chairs out of the box. That was the kind of the experience we had. And we didn't have x-rays to learn on, so we used post-pack tubes to hold up to each other's faces and so there was that element. So I think that, in terms of who I then went on to become, in terms of a business owner, I think it's that there was a level of individualism and entrepreneurialism that was almost encouraged by the university at that point. And especially then when, as a little side hustle, I went into starting the rowing club, which was really my first business, was the Griffith Uni Rowing Club. And so, I felt empowered by the university in many ways. And I think even today, I do get a sense of that from the Griffith grads versus the UQ grads we get and the other, just the other sort of, probably more traditional schools. So I think there's an element of, Gold Coast sort of chill, but also, there's a culture to us. Yeah. And I like that about the university as a whole, and obviously the students that come out. I've had lots of resonant success with Griffith grads over the years, within the business.
That's great to hear. Yeah, we know that it's quite a big leap, even myself going from working on dummies to working on patients.
Yes.
And I've heard that's even a bigger leap going from dental school to being a professional. What would you say are some of the biggest challenges leaving dental
Yeah.
school, working as a dentist?
Look, I think leaving dental school, you know, there's this journey you go on, which is the goal of dental school is to develop competence. If you get to competence in each of this, we actually in dentistry do a really broad array of skills. You know, in many professions the skill set is just much narrower, but dentistry has this, you know, smorgasbord of different skills that you're really kind of expected to be have generalised competence in all of them. And so I think the biggest challenge of coming out of dental school was, and I've seen it in every grad, that even, you know, as recently as last year, there's always, for me as an owner now, it's finding out where are the gaps in that competence skill set and quickly trying to address them and support them. Because that, you know, for me, I probably hadn't, you know, I remember sweating like crazy when I had a molar endo in the first 6 months, when I had a full dentures cases, and so yeah, I've got a lot of empathy for grads coming out who are sort of putting the pressure on themselves to be perfect in all areas. So you start off with probably 85% competence, 15% developing competence. I won't say incompetence, but you've got to plug those holes pretty quickly, you know, in a private environment, even in a commercial environment. Then you go from competence to confidence in certain areas, but eventually, probably over a period of, I would say by the end of 3 years out, so year 6, 7, and 8 of your dental education, you're kind of at that point you've sort of seen everything, you've had it come back, you pretty much get to confidence where you can turn up and be pretty confident everything's going to be fine. And then you get to excellence in certain, and I really think that leap from confidence to excellence takes, you know, not everyone can get to excellence in all areas. In fact, to get to excellence, you really need a unique passion about that segment of dentistry. And I think that's very much what I try and work on with grads over that initial kind of, so year 6 and 7, it's just like, let's get the foundations right. Then year, you know, then I think there's an inflection point after about 2 years where you really are well served in picking some sort of a formal or informal specialisation in dentistry and kind of going, you know, I'm going to hone in on this a bit. And that can be many things, like that can be, but ideally it's something that is of high value in the community, and it's also in high demand, because if it's not high value and high demand, it's a bit of a shame. But there are segments like that within dentistry, and we really proactively push the grads at that stage of their career to do it, and we support that. We say, look, we'll fund it, you know, so we've funded scholarships for grads after, you know, 2 years into things like orthodontics, into implantology, even more advanced dentists getting into all-on-4, and even, you know, in terms of dental assistants who've gone on to become executives within our business, we've encouraged them to pursue MBAs and formal qualifications like that in business, just because we need good, talented people to help run the group as well. So yeah, long answer, but we'll be here all night if I keep going on this one. Sorry, but anyway, useful points for grads to understand.
Yeah. I like how you call it year 6, year 7, year 8, because there's so much more to learn in dentistry even after we graduate.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so on another note, do you ever meet any dentists who regret sort of not choosing medicine over dentistry, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's definitely not me. Medicine, look. Definitely. Like there might be a percentage that regret dentistry, but you know, somebody in their last year, in final years, a dentist came and presented to us, and he offered up a quote that I've never forgotten, and he said, "Dentistry has been very good to me," and he said it with such sincerity, and I actually think, you know, every degree there's a bit of a deal involved. And another dentist actually described this concept of a deal to me. And I think actually dentistry isn't a bad deal at all. I think it's one of the best deals there is. It's like you go to uni, you're with one cohort for 5 years, which is great, rather than sort of being quite disconnected. You come out, you have actually pretty high earning potential early in your life. Whereas a lot of degrees actually don't. A lot of degrees, you go out and you earn, you know, very little, you know, in your late 20s and 30s. And that's actually the time of your life when money's really kind of useful, because it's when you're contemplating having families, as I've done. And so I think dentistry is good like that. You know, dentistry is actually a really good deal. And I think anyone who's been involved. For those that want to pursue medicine, then pursue medicine. Follow on with it. Be a max fac. You know, it's you know, that passion won't go away. I mean, for me, I probably should have followed on with an MBA, like a postgraduate business degree, because so yeah, it's definitely, there's no general. I've never noticed that. There's no generalized rule that there's like this sort of medicine regret. Dentistry is a form of medicine. Dentistry is just a very niche element of medicine, and a very important one. So yeah, no, they can have medicine. It's such a long road. I meet people my age who are still studying, and I'm like, wow, you know, I've been out 15 years in business, and yeah, no, I wouldn't change it.
Yeah. On that topic of early career potential, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
A lot of students have questions about when to apply, where to apply, how to get the rejection, stuff like that. Do you have any advice for those students about starting a career in dentistry?
Yeah, certainly. I would, get a resume together. Even, you know, typically we hire, you know, I think the last 3 years in a row we've hired for the following year in May. You know, so we would be in May. Wow. You know, because I find, you know, as a group operator, I find if we're advertising in October and November, a lot of people have already made arrangements, made jobs, Now that doesn't mean like, everybody is available, it doesn't mean that necessarily by doing it early, you're gonna, you know, we as a group are gonna sort of have an introduction to absolutely everybody, but you'll find that I think just by being out there, and I think going out to the market with your resume, just a tip on resumes, I would say one of the most important things, like I read hundreds, and they all look the same. Like they all look and feel the same. And first rule of marketing is be different. You know, so, because remember, you're not really looking to somewhat please everybody when you're handing out a resume. You're looking to deeply magnetically attract to somebody. You can only take one job. So you want to, by actually being deeply authentic in your resume, putting in the unusual, interesting things about yourself. Like I literally flip them all over and look at the hobbies and interests on the back. And if I see you've been on a committee, I go, wow, there's something in common. There's some life skills that are being developed. If I see you're into surf life, like one of the guys that works for us, Dr. Harry Goodman, he was in surf lifesaving. I was like, yep, that's him. You know, because I just knew I'd sort of have that shared life experience with him, and shared value set based upon that. And he's turned into a phenomenal dentist. He's on Instagram and doing really well. So I think, be authentic and be early. Is be first. There's a book called The 27 Laws of Marketing or something, and one is be first and one is be different. And I think you're kind of marketing yourself at that point. I see some students already have sort of a LinkedIn profile and they're posting about how they're going in fifth year, and I'm like liking it. And, that's cool to see. I think that's actually a skill set that's required in the modern world is, to expose yourself to the sort of maximum number of opportunities. You've got to be comfortable doing that. It feels a bit, self-promotional, but I had to go through it. Even just 3 or 4 years ago, I had to go, look, I really should get on LinkedIn and start telling people about what we do. So, yeah, we're we're just more familiar if our position ever pops up and we cross paths. Yeah. So same with you guys. Just gotta, not in third year, but when you get to fifth, I just totally encourage 5th years, get a resume together. And the other one I'd say is go and visit, go and knock on doors, drop in resume, because dental clinics often have the gatekeeper of the practice manager at the front or the receptionist. So if you physically turn up and say, hey, I'm a dentist, I'm interested in it. I've given people jobs just based on that, because the receptionist comes in and goes, oh my gosh, this wonderfully handsome individual just saw, beautiful, came in the door and charmed me, and I think that'd be phenomenal. All right, let's give him a go. So I think, dentistry is an in-person art. You've got a very narrow window to connect with patients and kind of charm them to some degree. So if you can do that to the receptionist, that's of value, and it sets you apart. So instantly, you're not just another resume. You're someone who's the other thing I'd say is find a community you're really passionate about as well. So if you dream of, the fastest way between 2 points is the straight line. So a lot of dentists I meet, I've always dreamed of, working in X community or this community or that community. It's like, just go to that community, because if it's like, I think, be direct. Life's pretty short, so be direct and jump in and just go to where you want to be, build a community there, and I think that's probably I think an important element to consider. Yeah.
That's some great advice in regards to how you stand out, because so many dentists graduate every single year, but it's what sets you apart from the stock standard applicant.
Yes.
Sure.
That's 100%. Primary thing to consider. How am I different? How am I really different? And it's hard work. There's a bit of work in figuring out how you are actually different, and then being brave enough to put it on paper, but you'll find it works. Yeah.
Thanks for that. So you talked about finding a community.
Yes.
And so for a lot of students who come from those metropolitan areas,
yeah.
I hear that the job market is a little bit different in metropolitan areas. It's more competitive. And so how would you go about finding your place in a community that you would consider building? Yeah,
that's... look, I think... So probably... I haven't in the last couple of years, but there used to be a small business subject within the curriculum, and they'd have guest lecturers. So for about a 6-year period, I came in and gave a guest lecture on what are the conditions on the ground now as you would see them. And so I probably started doing it in 2015 or 2016. I got asked when I was doing supervising in the clinic, which I did for about a year, and so it started off kind of at a everything is supply and demand. So there's a certain amount of demand in the patient population, and there's a certain amount of supply of dentists. And then you've got other variables like how much sort of free money is there in the economy, and how much money are they sort of trying to take out of the economy. So all these things are happening, kind of affecting dentistry along the way. And what it creates is these cycles for grads where 2015, 2016, things were pretty tough for grads. And then as you got towards 17, 18, 19, they got better and better and better. Then 2020, COVID hits, kind of a terrible year, like a moment, but then they throw a heap of money into the economy, and they also stop all migration of other dentists coming in. So all of a sudden, what was a little bit of an oversupply of dentists then becomes this chronic undersupply of dentists. So oddly enough, a few years ago, talking to the people that came out, I said, COVID's the best thing that ever happened to you guys. And they're sort of looking at me going, what? It didn't seem that way. But there was such an undersupply of dentists after a period of no migration that every dentist was really busy, and there was a lot of free money in the system. So it was just like So I think the grades that came out in sort of 2020, 21, 22 really were like, I'll go wherever I want and I'll be busy. There's a lot. Now, free money, unfortunately, has a downside that the cycle eventually flips, and they've tightened up on migration to some degree. They've tightened up on the amount of stimulus going into the economy. So I would say now what you feel, it's actually really on the, like for those graduating at the end of this year, this period is, I think the actual patients are doing it tougher than ever. So the patient's ability to pay for private dentistry and the clinic's ability to fund the equipment facility for a dentist to come in and work is under more pressure than ever. So for that reason, I think there is, so what you're not seeing in good periods, you'll see clinics go, yeah, let's take on the new grad, let's take on an extra dentist here, an extra dentist there. Let's expand our business. Now, perhaps the owners of clinics are saying, we're not quite full, we should go from, 3 dentists back to 2 or 5 back to 4. So it's a tough part of the cycle. But the nature of a cycle is it always turns. So the advice, you guys still have like a beach party at the beginning of the year where you just, do you know at the uni bar? So,
Yeah,
so I remember, so I think me and my mate Duke, we were young, single boys, and we were like, and we had the rule. So we had one rule at the beach party. It was like, take whatever you can get. Like that was our rule. Yeah. So I think as a when you're coming out, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. You just you can be very picky. You can be very choosy. Ideally, you do head to the community you want to head to, but I'd say like pick your community and then whatever's available. Just take it. Just get your foot in the door. If it's government, if it's not, often part-time leads to full-time, or you'll learn more from 2 part-time jobs than 1 full-time job because you'll see, I think some of our most successful grads have worked at both our big clinics, with 7 other clinicians, and also worked at our solo operator clinics. So they get to feel the difference and sort of see the strengths and weaknesses. The big clinics, usually are big, they're big for a reason, they've got a following, and but you're part of a kind of a system and you need to click into that system and just go with the system. Smaller clinics can be very much, it's like, well, what would you prefer? What materials would you like to use? What equipment we can really sort of customize the experience at a smaller clinic. So I'll just say, beach party rule, take whatever you can get, go out there, have fun, meet people, engage, and you'll end up in much the same place after 2 or 3 years. There's no don't think if I take this job it'll somehow impact my career. It won't. It will. All it is accumulating to get to that point of confidence where you can the goal is to be able to go anywhere and do it. Pretty much do anything and add value anywhere. So you'll get to that point either way, no matter where you work in the first 2 or 3 years, as long as you're pretty busy. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors to consider, and you've given us a lot to think about as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, did you and Duke ever make it?
Sorry?
Did it work out for you and Duke?
Oh, well, I met my wife here at Griffith, so I did. She was a Dutch international student doing an MBA, and she's been, Karen has been instrumental in growing the business, so she's sort of the hidden brain behind the whole thing, and it's helped me fill all the gaps in my business knowledge along the way. So if for the young dentists out there who are interested in a career in business, I would definitely say go to the accounting ball or the business school ball and fall in love, because it worked for me. Yeah.
Well, besides having a partner in that area,
yes.
How would you say you've sort of built on this business acumen of yours?
So I joined a group called Entrepreneurs Organisation, which is an international community of business owners all over the world. So around 20,000 members worldwide. And I joined that 13 years ago when I just sort of started to get into business, and just having that network has been phenomenal. It's called EO, and it's an interesting experience. It's almost like going to, people describe it as like Alcoholics Anonymous for business owners. You get together and you sort of share things that you wouldn't normally share. The top 5% wins and the bottom 5% losses in your business, family and personal life. So that has helped me just kind of level out the roller coaster that is the journey of business and taking responsibility for others, really, which is what business is. That's been really, I'd say like much of my learning has come through that way, and then and much of it has come through trial and error as well. Looking back, I think there is an efficiency. If business is a passion, which I would say for about 25% of dentists it is, just following on with some formal education is it's expensive, but it's also, it may well be more efficient. It may well actually be very much money well spent, because you get this sort of foundational knowledge which I just had to learn through practice, and definitely deep passion for it, deep curiosity for it, and ultimately the specialisation I took was as a dentist was in business, or in management, you could say. So there's sort of 9 formal specialisations. I think management is another one that some dentists are called to, and that was me. Yeah, that was me, which makes me unique, but that's everyone's an expression of what, there's sort of a thing, you go into clinic and you'll look at your list of different things you're doing that day, and one of them you'll be like, yes, it's like exo. Or, if it's root canal, if it's even working with kids or something, like some elements of dentistry won't feel like work. So it's always a good question, so hone in on that. Be aware of that. Even while you're at dental school, be aware of like, what do I like? Because you're often you should like everything. It's like, but, listen to the inner voice and says authentically, what do I like? What am I good at? And I think once you develop that broad sort of competence, you can then begin to explore that. There is an element at first where you need to get the basic competence. I talk about it in 3 areas, like a 3-legged stool. And say if you're sitting on a stool with 1 leg, it's not very stable, but 3 legs, and I think the 3 legs that really turn you into a high contributing dentist is you've got the interpersonal, so the ability to obviously communicate and connect, not just to patients, but to your dental assistant, to your manager, to your practice manager, to perhaps the owner of the clinic, whatever structure that is. Because the good dentists are not liked, they're loved. And that's a higher bar. Set yourself that challenge. Do the people around me love working with me? And you go, if they do, am I bringing enough energy? Am I sort of creating an environment where they're like, I want to work with this person? Do the patients love you? Like my dad was a dentist, and that patients, I just listened to him relate to that. They loved him. Like it was absurd how much they loved him. I sort of always looked to that. As a new grad, I would be in the room next door to my dad and I'd be like trying to sort of emulate. I was like, how will I ever have that level of connection? And then the last one is financial. So a lot of dentists don't, they're slow to sort of connect with this reality that every time, here's a good statistic that I think is really relevant, especially in an inflationary kind of era that we're in. Every time you walk into the room and open the doors of a dental surgery and begin work for an hour, $250 has been spent. So the cost, before you're even paid. So, a lot of the time dentists come out and they're like, you mean I have to charge the patient, like $400, $500, $600? Like this seems like a crazy amount of money, especially when you've been living on toast as a new grad, as a uni student for years, when you're having no money and all of a sudden you're dealing with these big numbers. But I think understanding the financial realities of dentistry, of going, wow, just to have this room costs $250 an hour. So I've got to get that back, and then I've got to earn enough to, collect my percentage on top of that, just to make this break even, not even to make it sort of make money. So, and that is a big challenge, and you can see that the magnitude of that challenge in an environment where everybody's doing it tough, which is kind of what's happening to Australia on the back of all that COVID sort of sugar high. That's a big challenge for grads to come out and do. I'm working, we've got grads in the business at the moment, and they're working through that. Just how do we create an experience that is worth that much money? So those are three stools. There is a fourth element that I think if you get, you really become like what I call a unicorn dentist. I talked about this at the Griffith Grad Ball last year, and that's ethical. So if you really, there's an ethical element there's a lot of dentistry that could be done. You should, as a dentist, you should be as proud of the dentistry you don't do as the dentistry you do. And so if you have this, interpersonal skills, the clinical skills, the financial understanding, then, a percentage of time you'll just choose not to deploy it for the benefit of the patient. You'll just say, I think it's 50-50 here. They don't really need that. I'm not going to do it. And I think that's where you actually become what I call sort of a unicorn dentist, where you've got it all. And they're the people that, we're lucky enough to have sort of a stable full of unicorns, and we're always looking for more, but they're the people I like to work with the most, because so that's sort of that's kind of my assessment of dentistry, and some frameworks there to consider going into as you graduate.
Yeah, those are some great nuggets of wisdom, and I'm sure a lot of dental students can relate to that interpersonal skills and the clinical side of things, but the business and financial literacy, stuff that's not really taught in dental school. Definitely, I think we'll have a lot of questions about that as well. So do you have any tips, I guess, getting into the business group? Well, like the group that you mentioned as well. Yes. Where do you even start looking?
Well, so the other thing I say about the stool is actually strengthen your weakest leg.
Yes.
So, because often you'll be like super strong clinically, you'll have a financial understanding, but interpersonally you mightn't be as developed. So invest the money you make into continuing professional development in that area. If you have a natural flair for clinical, a lot of people do is go deeper, and they spend all the money on that, and it's like, you would actually end up doing a lot more of the clinical work you love if you could communicate better and just got a foundation in that area, got some mental framework. I'm big into mental models. It's like, what is the mental model that we're deploying here? And so I think models are like a compression of knowledge that are easily passed on. So there's heaps of so strengthen your weakest leg. If it's in the business, if you want to get into business, the advice I always say is chase the grey wizard. So chase the grey wizard is the mental model there, where there's always dentists. There's 8,000 dental clinics in Australia, or there used to be. There's probably more now. Many are about to retire and sell their business just from timing. So pretty much all of the clinics we've bought have been off dentists that are sort of the grey wizards. Just, have mastered everything, have done well, have raised their families, and now we're just ready to hand the reins on to someone else. And so, it's, have conversations at conferences with people. There's definitely opportunity. There's practice sales search, and there's other places where clinics are listed as sort of a real estate kind of .com of dentistry, and there's places to list. But interestingly, I haven't had a heap of success with clinics that have been listed. I've bid on a few, but I've never managed to sort of pick them up. The ones that have really resonated is when I've knocked on the door and said, "Hey, if you're ever thinking of retiring, let me know." And this one time, I walk in and I say to this guy, "Hey, look, you're probably not thinking about it, but if you're ever thinking of retiring, let me know." And he's sitting in there, just standing next to the dental chair, and he just pulls it. He's got a cigarette, and he goes, "Well, I better start thinking about it." And I went, "Oh." And he went, "I just turned 81.
Wow, that's
He was 81.
You're a dentist.
He was 81, smoking, chain smoking,
Dentistry.
and he built a good little business. And look, we ended up, thoroughly renovating that clinic. But we bought it, and so there's always, you meet characters in dentistry, and every community needs one. When you're looking at a business, you're really looking for resonance. You're like a resonance with who you are, and do you like the community? Do you like the individual? Do you connect with them? Because if you connect with them, then chances are their patients will connect with you as well. So, I think that's probably what I'd say, is just look for opportunities that way, directly, indirectly. They come up all the time. Yeah.
I know a lot of students will have a lot of questions on this.
Yes.
But are there any particular qualifications, skills? You mentioned CPD courses.
Yes.
That you recommend?
I would definitely. Yeah, I think do one communications course in your first year. In your first year out, just there's all different type. There's different professionals within that space that teach communication different. I think that's money well spent, just as a foundational investment. I think other than that, focus on the areas of weakness. But it's interesting. Like as the grads emerge, they'll just it's up to us as an organisation to notice where they're strong, where they're weak, and kind of push and go, hey, you're earning money now. You should go and, if you're not, for example, there's sometimes there can be a phobia of just doing something as simple as doing crowns. I actually went through my whole first year, didn't do a crown, didn't do one, and then it was a dentist working alongside me, Greg. He was like, why aren't you doing crowns? You're actually not doing good dentistry, because at least probably you're doing these 5 surface restorations successfully, and you're doing like 10% of these people would be best served with a crown, at least. Not maybe not 100%, not 50%, but at least if crowns aren't 10% of what you're doing, you're actually not doing the best dentistry, in my opinion. Now everyone's got a different. Some people are like crown everything. Some people are like no, be totally minimal, and believe it should perhaps be 5% instead of 10. So you just got to find that sort of authentic position for yourself. But yeah, I guess I had a phobia. I had a blockage there, and then somebody came along and gave me a nudge, and so I went and practiced a bit. And I don't know if I did a course, but now I feel like there's a lot better education opportunities around. A dentist that sort of worked for us, his name's John NG. He runs a business called Source Education that's really good. It's really good for grads, and he went on a really interesting journey. He basically reinvested every single dollar he made in himself in education, and just skilled up. And he became this phenomenal. We were so lucky to have him for. I think he worked for us for 3 or 4 years. So there's you can actually take that reinvestment theme to an extreme, and you'll do really, really well as well. But I would say the two logical pathways after a couple of years that you could probably expand yourself into quite successfully. Obviously, you can do an implantology degree of sorts. There's small ones, there's large ones, but whatever you need to get confident at offering that as just a single implant as a service, along with a bit of pros / implanty kind of degree, I think is really good money, and it probably suits the extroverted dentists as well, because there's a bit of salesmanship in that. There's a bit of it doesn't sell itself. Let's put it that way. You've got to be like, hey, let's do all this work, and that's so there's an element where you need to sell. Then the other pathway I think is aligner ortho, or either simple banded ortho or aligner ortho is another pathway you can take. It kind of does sell itself. People turn up. If you can do ortho well, people will just turn up and say, here's my $10,000, please, let's go. So I sort of say to the introverted dentists that, I think that that's a good pathway to take as well, just getting into a bit of ortho. You want to kind of create some sort of a specialisation in your own work. And those two are in high demand. They're also, the patients are willing to sort of pay for those, pay more for those than typical general dentistry. General dentistry, you might sort of charge out at $400 an hour, 400 or 500 an hour even. Now everything's sort of going up, but those skills, that's you're getting into the $700-800 an hour billing kind of rates if you get pretty efficient and competent at them. So if you double your hourly rate over the course of your whole career, that's going to make a hell of a difference between, with your just general sort of opportunities and financial sort of quality of life as well. So if you can do that before you get to, this is the other thing I'd say is you come out of uni, you get competent in your work, and then very soon you'll have, after that you might end up having a family for some. That is like a meteorite, you know what I mean? So like I've got 2 girls and it's amazing, but yeah, like there is a window before you have a family that I think should be, really regarded as precious in a few different ways. One is to upskill and get those, if you're going to get those additional degrees, get them then. The other is I actually think travelling, just taking a 3-month period or 6-month period to really, go around and see the world. My mate Duke did that for 2 years and before COVID, and then he had a wild time. But he went to 110 countries, and so there's he really took that opportunity, and so I think that's worth considering as well, because you only live once.
Yeah, I might just take it back to what you said before about that dentist that helped you. Was it Dr. Greg?
Yes.
Would you consider him as a mentor of sorts?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I was lucky. I came into an environment where I had, 2 senior dentists sort of working alongside. My dad, one was my dad, so I, obviously had, a lot of support from him clinically, and then Greg was the other one. So look, now in trying to sort of create an environment of learning for the grads, I talk about a lot of dentists come out and go, I want a mentor. Because they're kind of used to that from uni. They've got this kind of angel on their shoulder. For me, it was a gentleman called Dr. Suhas Tumkur. And I remember him, he was there. If I needed him, he was there. It was just so comfortable. It was lovely. But then you come out and you're like, oh gosh, I'm on my own here. This is scary. I need a mentor. I need a mentor like that. I need somebody to call upon. Now, so the reality is that setup can be found, but not necessarily always. What you probably, and even eventually after 3 months of calling my dad and going, hey, can you check my filling? And he pretty much, he just says, Dave, don't call me anymore. Don't. He goes, I'm busy. I've got a job to do. I can't go and check. It's fine. You've been, and so I think there comes a point where the mental concept of a mentor changes in the recent grad's mind, where they go, oh, actually, I am qualified. And you become much more selective when you ask for help. So I think, but you still need that injection of new information, new ideas. So in our group, I call it like a mentoring onion. So you've got, obviously lunch table mentoring is what, most dentists sort of, you've had a senior clinician at the clinic, you can have a chat about what happened during the day. So I think that lunch table is important. Then we actually have one-on-one mentoring. So we'll set sessions, every now and then, pretty much once a month. And we'll talk to, I'll do it sometimes if my sort of area of understanding applies. If another dentist within the group does that, we'll pay them to have that mentoring session with the young grad. So we've got the one-on-one, peer-to-peer kind of mentoring happening. Then we've got like lectures. So once a month, we try and have a lecture series for the new grads, just to say, here's what different things we could be doing. So that's been a real success. We've got just having an internal lecture program in person during work hours. I think that shows sort of our commitment that we want to bring that university experience to the workplace. And then, look, I would say don't underestimate YouTube. I've seen so many dentists just phenomenally upskilled just by watching you. I've seen the ones that have had the most rapid skill trajectory have been addicted to dentistry on YouTube and have picked up things along the way. And then the final element is formal paid degrees education. So we try and get behind that as well with, just by funding these degrees in return for dentists sticking around for a few years. So that's been a real win too. And my dad passed away a few years ago, so we named that scholarship program after him, Peter Houston Scholarship Program, and that's been a great success. We've got about, I think, 4 dentists in that at the moment. And more sort of working their way through. So, that's the interesting journey for us as a group we've been on is, when I first came out, it was like, who am I going to get that's kind of, going to work here forever? Now it's much more of a flow model, less of a static model, more of a flow model. So, grads will flow in, they'll go from, competence to confidence, they'll get confident, then we might branch into their help them branch into their degree. And then even in the last few years, I've been doing a monthly business lecture where the ones that have been with us, 4, 5, 6 years have expressed an interest in going into business for themselves. And I said, gosh, they've been so good to me. Why don't I share that knowledge back and prepare them for what they're going to experience? Because it isn't, the hardest thing about going into business as a dentist is that dentistry, if you're 99.5% accurate in dentistry, you have a problem. You actually need to be more accurate than that. And that's what is drilled into you when the tutor comes around and goes, you're a quarter of a millimetre off here. And I remember going, did you say quarter of a centimetre? And they're like, no, quarter of a millimetre. I'm like, whoa, this is a level of precision that is required, but, it was a shock to me. But then, when you're managing others, it's sort of I feel like that 85% is about as much as you can't. And what's interesting is over time I've seen dentists do it a different way to, they've done a completely different way to I do it, but they build their own following in their own community in their own way, even though they're doing dentistry very differently to me. So, but initially it was why don't you do it this way, do it that? You've got to sort of just kind of let go. And now, across 6 locations, I've got to sort of, that's the skill set of evolving to let go, but be aware of the details appropriately, but be able to let go. So, if you really want to scale up, you've got to do it again. You've got to be you've got to empower a management team to manage. We're working with, I've got 2 distinct layers of management beneath me, and it's so there's complexities there. That's a whole other sort of lecture that I was actually just in Vietnam giving about the different layers of different levels of responsibility, and how being a 1-up leader is different to being a 2-up leader is different to being a 3-up leader. So we could do a follow-up on that in years to come. Hey? Cool.
So let's talk about scaling a dental practice. And you've built Australia Dental Group, which has now transformed into an expansion of 6 different clinics.
Yeah.
So what are some key strategies that helped you grow so successfully?
So I think obviously getting the first clinic off my dad was an opportunity, buying that one, and buying it relatively early in my career was super important. From that point, it was all about just acquiring acquisitions. At a certain point, I had to decide to really, dramatically reduce my clinical hours and just focus on my passion, which was management and the business architecture. It's a weird thing, having spent pretty much a decade, 5 years of dental school, 5 years of practice in the profession. And then just saying, no, I pretty much said I'll have a year off and I'll see how it goes. And that was over a decade ago. And that time is the irreplaceable commodity. But but very counterintuitive decision, very terrifying decision to pursue business, as the primary vector. My wife was a bit concerned. She was like, "Hang on, I married a dentist, not some business owner." So that way, my dad, who was a dentist, he was very not supportive. He was sort of like, "This is a terrible, mistake." But I guess, and so it took a lot of courage to sort of just say, "You know what? This is me. This is authentically what I love doing. This is authentic to the truth and what I think is logical." And it's not for everybody. Most of the dentists I meet at conferences, the worst part of their day is dealing with staff and the challenge of managing people. They love the clinical art form of dentistry, but they're like, "Oh my God, the staff are killing me." For me, it's the other way around. I got to competence with over a 5-year period with the art of dentistry, but I found the business stuff just really effortless and really quite interesting. And I'd get the ADA magazine and I'd turn it straight over and I'd look at what's for sale in the back. So I think. And it's worked out for me, and I think every happy dentist I meet has followed their truth, has followed it, whether it's an element of dentistry they wish to pursue that they find joyful. So I would say that it's not. It was never an intention. It wasn't like let's scale. It was let's run the business beautifully. Like, let's run it elegantly. Let's how do the best businesses in the world run? Like, can we attempt to emulate this? And so we put in a lot of systemization frameworks. I'm very much a student on how other businesses run, and the expression of that passion is the fact that we've grown. It's not the other way around. It's not like we've grown and therefore that was the intention. I think that's actually quite a negative intention. Whereas, growth is the byproduct of passion and of success and authenticity in a particular vector. So you'll just see it as, it'll just come. So, and for me that, has meant more dental clinics along the way. And it's been great. I get to work with people that I can feel it in them. They're equally passionate about dentistry as I am about running everything around them. And you could not take the dentistry away from them. They're like, no, because initially when I came out, I thought everyone was like me. I thought, it's a very easy mistake to make. You go, everyone has the same priority. No, everyone's very, very different. And as I sort of attempted to, try and promote some of the dentists into sort of more managerial positions, they're like, no, but then I get to do less dentistry. No, I want the dentistry. No, the dentistry is the good bit. So that was, I think that's probably the most, authentic thing I can say on that.
Well, balancing clinical work and running a business must have been quite tough. How did you manage all of that?
Yeah, I think unlearning is very important. So, dentistry, as a dentist, you learn this level of precision, this 99% plus level of precision, but you've got to sort of actively, if you try and take that level of precision and impose it upon your version of precision on other people, they're going to go, no, especially in Australia. Like, there's no, maybe in Vietnam, they go, yes, sir, that's, but not in Australia. Like, no. So you've got to give people their space. You've got to let them do the job the way they want to do it, and if it's about 85% right, you just let it go. Is it working? Yeah. No one's people are happy. No one's going to go. Is it exactly what I want? No, it never is. But it's but you find it's almost universal compromise where 100% success is actually where the patient is about 85% happy and the staff are about 85% happy and the dentists are about 85% happy and I'm about 85% happy. And if anyone is more happy than that, you have a problem, because that probably means someone else is unhappy. So I'm always kind of feeling for this equilibrium where things could always be a little bit better for everybody, but that is actually what 100% success feels like, I feel, in business. And that's served me well. Hard lesson to learn, especially as you come out of dentistry where it's like perfection is the goal. And often attained, actually. Often attained in dentistry. It is not attainable in business. It's it might be for a flickeringly brief period of time, but it's not quite as attainable in that sort of obvious way.
So 85%, that's the
85% pays the rent. Think of it that way. When you're running your clinic one day. Yeah.
Should I take that to my exams as well?
Well, you'll definitely pass with 85%. I probably didn't get 85% on all my exams, yeah, it's a rule of thumb. It's a mental model I've come up with, and it's allowed us to grow. If you're too perfectionist, I think you can run one clinic, really sort of. I've seen people do this, like in a really sort of perfectionist way. But if you want to do multi-sites, it's a complex challenge that is not for everybody. It's really only for. There's about 10 people in Australia that, have this in common, and it's not, I talk to them and, we get on, but yeah, I would say, the only thing we have in common is we're following our own truth and curiosity, yeah.
Well, you lead a pretty successful, pretty impressive network of 6 clinics, as you say. What do you think is the biggest approach to fostering a positive workplace culture? So
I think actually, I feel like culture is almost downstream of recruitment. So the first thing, if you want to have a great culture, is recruit the right people. Because, we really empower the leaders of each practice to run the business almost as if it's their own. And, we provide them a system and we're very detailed with that. But how they do it actually varies from location to location. So what I've noticed is amongst our 6 clinics, we definitely have a core, like a unified core, but there are differences. Some are, some are fun. Some are just, you walk in and it's just laughter, laughter, laughter. Some are more serious and professional. So, and I really think the culture of a clinic is the expression of the individuals that work within it. And you can't, I think it's sort of a bit, I don't know, to me it's sort of a bit naive to think you can change that. Like, to me it's not something that, I think let it be. To me, I just sort of let it be the expression of the individuals who you recruit. If they align with you, then you're going to have that in common. You're going to have sort of this foundational set of values in common. And we're pretty explicit about that. Even in our job ads, we say, here are our values. Like so we're sort of trying to filter at the recruitment initial stage, and then it just expresses itself. We've written a system, and so the individuals using our system will express itself. So the dentist doing the dentistry they want to do within our service facilities express itself. And to me, I sort of go, yeah, I'm like, is everyone, are people happy? That matters to me. And are we doing good work for people? Is nobody, we do really sort of closely review complaints, but I think I haven't been as intentional about setting a culture and kind of as others. It's happened sort of more organically, evolved over time. But I definitely know when someone's not one of us, if you understand what I mean. Like, I can almost, I've got like you just get a sixth sense for it when you're professional. We've got sort of 75 people involved, and you get a sixth sense for new people you meet. I met a new trainee, because we have a trainee program for dental assistants, and met a new trainee the other day, Charlotte, and I just went, wow, she's one of us. Like, just total. I said, hey, I'll sort of introduce myself and said, thanks, by the way, thank you for choosing our work. And she's like, no, thank you. Like, no, thank you. This is great. This is the best job I've had. And boom, boom, boom. And I was like, what a winning attitude. Like, there's winning attitude. And I think having a big background in I did a lot, before I started the rowing club at uni, I did a lot of elite, like high level rowing, and went to a world championships for rowing. And so you do bring across some of that, what it takes to win. And, I think positivity is an important part of that. You've got to sort of have a positive vibe. You've got to be efficient. So I took a lot of my rowing foundational life experience into business, and it's really served me well. Rowing and dentistry have a lot in common, believe it. Yeah.
I didn't think.
I can start rowing.
Yeah. Please do. Yeah.
And with that, you said, I guess people are very important, but even more important, I feel, is a leader as well.
Yeah.
So you want to touch on, I guess, your time being GUDSA president.
Yeah. See, I've had a very tortured relationship with leadership over time. And so I think, in a sense, what I've done is even, is I want to share that, because I've probably always wanted to be a leader and be able to sort of broadcast my views and speak publicly. But it's only in the last probably 3 years that I've actually developed the confidence to do that. And a lot of my time within my business club and the sort of therapy sessions we have, led me to get there, and sort of be able to be authentic as a leader. Before that, it took me long. So I want to share that. It took me 10 years of owning a business to give a speech to my own team. And that day, I was terrified. Like, I was absolutely terrified. And I'm the first to admit, natural extrovert. I did speech and dramas. I love it. I love it. And yet, within my own team, within my own business, I really had a mental barrier, fear barrier. So I think that is as good an example of why you need to continue learning as any, because every kind of that has been a big unlock for me, in all areas of my life, to be able to be comfortable saying I'm a leader and being a leader and being visible as a leader. And so I'm on LinkedIn a lot. I'm on LinkedIn saying, here's what we're doing. I put out a lot of our internal communications externally to the whole sort of wide world. I think so. Yes, leadership is important. Some people, you meet people that are born with it. You meet people that are just natural in that skin. I feel like Australia has a really odd relationship with leadership, where we kind of hate our leaders. Australia. I don't see it in sort of, cities like, countries like Singapore and the United States. They're kind of like, yeah, the leader, whereas we're like, boo, leaders suck, and we boo the Prime Minister at football games. And, so Australia has this interesting culture, and I think I sort of was very wary of that. But ultimately, if you want to, it was important to me. The night after I gave that speech to the whole team, I was driving home and I just pulled over to the side of the road and went, I've done it. I can actually, it was a weird expression, but I was like, I can actually die happy now, rather than one day, hopefully not too soon. But it was such a big thing, for me to overcome. And I've been giving presentations and speeches ever since, and and I want to do more of it. I really enjoy it. And I was recently in Vietnam presenting on the different levels and to EO, within that EO community in Vietnam. And that's sort of the direction my life's taking me in now, because I persevered with leadership. So I would say to anyone there, just persevere with it. Find a community of people that want to see you succeed, and be brave. Yeah.
That's some fantastic advice. So looking to the future, where do you see the dental industry heading, especially in the next decade or so?
Yeah, this is really relevant for you guys, isn't it? Just what's it going to be? Well, like I said, the conditions on the ground are really tough. They're tough for small business as a whole, generally. One of my business coach is Philip DeBella, he created DeBella Coffee, like a really well-known coffee brand around Australia. And he has connections with a lot of cafes. He said many cafes are budgeting for zero profit a year this year. And I think many small businesses are are in that position, and many dental clinics on the whole are small businesses. They call dentistry the last great cottage industry in a way, because and it probably always will be because of just the nature of the economics of dentistry. But yeah, I think where's it going? So you're seeing this. So everybody's sort of very, like the cost of providing a room versus the money that the patient can pay. There's not a lot of difference between that now. So as a business, it's quite stretched. Now, the dentists individually typically make 30 to 40% of that, and they're doing fine. But the actual business owners are probably doing it pretty tough at the moment. And that will, how will that play out? So what you're seeing is there's sort of different areas of exploration that dentists are now taking. Some are doing more cosmetic-based, expensive sort of work. And there's also a bit of a trend of clinics taking on superannuation funding. So patients are coming in pain typically, and they're accessing their superannuation to fund advanced dental treatment. We did this for a period of time, but we experimented with it for about 18 months with just one of our sort of 20 clinicians, and in the end I just decided, I thought, no, this isn't quite right, because a lot of the people who come in are spending their super. The problem with dentistry is a depreciating asset, so you'll put dentistry in and it'll sort of become less valuable over time. It may even fail. That's the nature of dentistry. But you're taking what is a appreciating asset of super, which is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger over a person's life, and you're investing it in something that will help them out for a period of time, but eventually, and that difference in expectations between, because the patients, if they're spending their super, they're probably in the back of their mind thinking, this will last me as long as the super would have lasted me and be as valuable. And it just fundamentally, the economics mean it can't. So there is a place for it. I think there needs to be tighter legislation around when it's used. But so some clinics are sort of going down that pathway. I'm not a big fan of it. So there's sort of this. I guess there's a bit of a battle within dentistry at the moment between traditional less is more dentistry, which is really almost a productivity-based business where you sort of like. I would actually put dental clinics beside any other business in Australia in terms of raw productivity and efficiency. Like there is zero waste going on in how clinicians typically work in sort of bread and butter dentistry. And then there's a different school of thought, which is more is more. So let's help people more by doing more work on them dentist, that's a quote from a dentist, Kia Pravesh, who down in Melbourne owns a huge clinic in Melbourne. And he sort of noticed that. I think it's a very accurate assessment of what's happening. And look, all I would say is be authentic with which pathway you want to take. There's pretty much, there's kind of two pathways within dentistry. There's a sort of a productivity-based workflow, or there's sort of a high-value treatment-based workflow. And it's a decision that every dentist has to make at a certain point. You can kind of blend the two, it is actually quite an authentic decision. In my entire career, I never did a veneer, for example. I never did one. But some of my dentists do. Some of them do. So you just got to be you've got to find where's your clinical truth and go, that's what I am. That's what I do. And I'll explore within that sort of sandbox. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice.
Yeah.
And I guess, do you have any other tips or advice for the dental students watching at home that might be interested in those specialization areas but don't know where to look, or dental schools really feeding into those?
I think I sit on the advisory board for the University of Queensland Dental School, actually. So it's cool to see all the sort of different things happening there and the specialisations that are flowing through. We've had dentists pursue those, go away, do endo, and now sort of branching out. I think it comes back to just having. You don't need to have a plan, really. You don't. I think you don't need to go. All right, this is my plan. You're lucky if you can sort of imagine that. I think it's more process. It's like, what am I going to learn this year? How am I going to improve myself? How am I going to expand myself? Like that constant kind of momentum and iteration. And then what you find is opportunities to present because you're now a better version of yourself, and people go, oh, I'll come along and do that. So I would say keep learning. Keep just a sort of relentless hunger. I mean, for me, it's benefited me to have a relentless hunger to learn in the area of business and in an area of passion. So be relentless in your passion, and I think you'll live a very authentic and fulfilling life. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. Dave Houston, for giving us so many interesting insights, especially the blend of clinical dental work as well as business, which is something that we don't typically see in dental school. So for our listeners, you can learn more about Australia Dental Group through
my link. Just follow me on LinkedIn, Dave Houston on LinkedIn. I'm always posting about what we're doing each week. Reach out if something resonates. Yeah.
Well, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the Dental Brush Up podcast.